Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard on this Tuesday morning here in Alabama. I'm glad you're with me. We've got a lot to talk about, so let me get a little sip of coffee and get going. Is it possible that Donald Trump could turn California red? Is it possible? Could he possibly turn a solid, up till this point, for the longest time, from blue to red? I don't know the last time the state of California voted for a Republican president. I know they voted for Reagan. That was in 1980 and 84. I think that was it. I could be wrong. They might have voted for Papa Bush, but I don't know. But it's been a long, long time. It is a solid blue state. They always vote for the Democrats. They have terrible representation in Congress and in the State House. But as you know, some really bad things continue to happen in the state of California. And I'm sorry about that. I don't wish that on anyone. But I am absolutely convinced that a lot of the suffering that people are going through in California right now is the result of man-made activity in terms of negligence, and we'll get into that here in just a moment. But I'm asking the question, can Trump turn California red? Think about it, folks. If Donald Trump could turn California into a Republican state, and I don't think it's that far-fetched, it's going to be a whole different ball game. It's going to be a long, long time before you see a Democrat back in the White House. I think we've also made inroads in New Jersey, but the fact of the matter is there's no question we've made inroads in California. California got a little bit competitive in the last presidential election, even considering the fact that cackling Kamala Harris is from California. And she won it, but the margins got closer in this last election. Now let's take a look about the latest that's happening there in California with regard to these fires. There are at least 250,000 Californians now without homes because of the wildfires that are still going on. They are still going on. The latest one that I heard about this morning on the news is called the Hughes Fire. It's in the area of Magic Mountain. I've never been there, but I've heard of it. I don't even know if it's still there or not, but and these things are just spreading, folks. And let me not get ahead of myself here. 250,000 people without homes. The damage estimates are anywhere currently from $50 to $100 billion. You think about that a moment. 250,000 people suddenly just absolutely homeless in California. That is a lot of people. Now, as we speak here on January 28th, I believe it is, now the Santa Ana winds are kicking in. You've got dry hills, and they have not been cleared of brush. And there's this new fire I just talked about. Now, there's one common denominator in California with regard to these fires, and it is really bad leadership. And I'm talking about Governor Gavin Newsom, who currently is nowhere to be found. He doesn't want to deal with this stuff. You've got the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, a little commie pinko leftist, who is in way over her head. Did you see Trump basically put her in her place over the weekend? You have another man by the name of Brian Williams. Brian Williams is the assistant mayor or the vice mayor of Los Angeles, and he is currently under house arrest for phoning in a bomb threat. The vice mayor of Los Angeles. When I heard about that, I had to go and verify, but it's true. Now, I am convinced that what we have in California, I believe there's at least 4 components to this fire. I believe it is water, timber, and government mismanagement. The latter largely because of DEI policies. And now you have in place in government in California, in local and state government, people who are completely incompetent and in over their heads, and they only have their job because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these leftists in California, they are nature worshipers. To them, the mother is our earth, and they would soon die as to take a chainsaw and cut a tree down. The whole concept of forestry management is lost on them because they're environmental wackos. And for this reason, they leave they have no knowledge of or experience in forestry management. So you have wide swaths of wild land that is not maintained. There are no controlled burns. There is so much underbrush. You couple the fact that you've got this underbrush because of mismanagement and now the Santa Ana winds. It's just a recipe for disaster. These people do not know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about land management. They just know that you're not supposed to touch trees or bugs or bushes or anything like that. You can't take care of the land in a proper manner because you've got people in charge that are nothing but DEI hires. Then you put in the component that you can't talk about, but I'm going to talk about it. The component of homelessness in a city, Los Angeles, of 18 million people. You have a huge population of homeless people. These people are camping out all over the area. And a lot of them, what are they going to do? They're going to start fires. Especially if they're meth heads, they're going to be starting fires. And you cannot dismiss this component of homeless people as being responsible for starting the fires. You've basically got the perfect storm in Southern California. And it really, folks, I got to tell you, after a while, you have to start asking the question, when you consider the political leadership in California of Newsom and Bass and all these other DEI hires, and you have to start asking that. You just have to ask the question: is it possible that this is intentional? Is it possible? How else can you explain this? How else can you explain these ravaging fires in Palisade and there's no water to speak of? And it was intentionally diverted from the aqueducts into the Pacific Ocean from the north, from Sacramento. How is that allowed to happen? How can Karen Bass just sit on her hands and while this area of Southern California is on fire? Is it possible, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just asking the question, is it possible that they had designs in their noggin, their little leftist noggins, for some sort of utopian rebuild where they have high rail and mass transit and low-income housing, things of that nature, maybe a total recreation of that area? Is it possible that this just isn't bothering them as much as perhaps it should bother them? Is that why we're not seeing more action on their part? Because perhaps they want to rebuild Southern California and the Los Angeles area into some sort of leftist utopian society that is more in line with their political philosophy? Is it possible? I'm simply asking. You tell me. You tell me what you think. Now, Donald Trump, this is where I'm going to get to the nub of the matter here. I got so many notes here. Donald Trump said this in the last day or two. He has told the political leadership in Southern California, the federal government is ready to help you But you're going to have to meet with and agree to the following conditions. This is completely reasonable. Number one, you're going to have to change your method of timber and forestry management. Number two, Trump says you're going to have to release more water from the Sacramento aqueducts and tributaries. And you're going to have to keep these aqueducts and reservoirs full. Number three, Trump says you're going to have to reform your insurance industry so that you do not cap what the insurance companies can charge so that they don't go broke. That makes sense. I mean, look, you've got to have insurance, but what's happening is they're capping in California what insurance companies can charge. But folks, let's face the facts. Insurance companies exist to make money. It's as simple as that. I understand that. Who doesn't understand that? Else they would not exist. You know, we pay our premiums for health insurance, vehicle insurance, home insurance, and the insurance companies we deal with are making money from us. I understand that because this is where Whoopi Goldberg recently got confused. If I had an auto accident or if my home caught on fire or something of that nature, I'm going to need to file a claim for insurance. And this is why insurance companies are a for-profit industry. They have to make money to cover losses. And if California is telling insurance companies we're going to cap your premiums or cap what you can charge your customers, then they're just going to say, then we're not going to offer our services to Californians. And who can blame them? And Trump is saying, if we are going to help you, you're going to meet these conditions. These three conditions, they're all completely reasonable if you ask me. I would carry it a little bit further. If I were Donald Trump, I would say what he said, and then I would say, pardon me, Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, we're going to help you, and we're going to help Californians. But the fourth thing you're going to do is you're going to have election reform in California. You're going to have same-day voting. You're going to have paper ballots. You are going to have voter ID. It is just that simple if you want our help. Trump didn't say that, but he should have. President Tim would say that because this thing has got to be fixed. There's got to be election reform in California. All that being said, folks, I really believe, and I'm sorry that it's happening in the face of a tragedy, but I believe California is getting to be ripe for the picking. You imagine this. You've got all these lefties in California, particularly in the entertainment industry in Southern California. And they are seeing now the results of the philosophy they have been espousing for years with particular regard to the environment and the leftist policies with regard to environment. I tell you, whoever's going to run for president, Vance, I assume, he ought to go to the Pacific Palisades in 2028 and just stand there and say, have you had enough? I believe real inroads are going to be made politically because this stuff is hitting people where they live, and that is in their pocketbook. And Californians are seeing the result of years and years of failed Democratic policies and mismanagement on the part of their leaders, their governor, their mayors. They're seeing what it's got them. At some point, you know, Trump says to bring back common sense, and he's right. At some point, I don't care how left-wing radical you are, when your house is burning down, when you lose your property, it's time to do a checkup from the neck up, as they say. It's time for you to find some common sense that has been absent from you for quite some time. I believe the opportunity to turn California red is with us. And we need to pursue this. I'm telling you, strike while the iron is hot. Trump tweeted this earlier today. This may have been last evening. He said this, quote, "The U.S. military just entered the great state of California and under emergency powers turned on the water flowing abundantly from the Pacific Northwest and beyond. The days of putting a fake environmental argument over the people are over," unquote. That's great. And then the California Department of Water Management, DWR, or Department of Water Resources, they responded to Trump by saying that they deny that this is what has happened. Well, who do you believe? Who's the liar? Well, the real liar, please stand up. And they were getting eat up like chopped liver on Twitter for saying that. All right, let me move on. Now, as you know, we are in the midst of some real proactive immigration reform measures being implemented by border czar Tom Homan. Do you not just love this guy? I love me some Tom Homan. Tom Homan is getting illegals out of our country even as we speak. He is rounding them up and sending them back home, as he should. Folks, you've got to have laws to have a country. And you can't have illegal aliens committing rapes and murders and all kinds of just wreaking havoc in your country. You can't abide it or you're not going to have a country. You can't go to New York and ride the subway because of crime, much of it committed by illegal aliens. It's not this way in Tokyo, by the way, and they got a whole lot more people than New York does. I think Tokyo's the largest city in the world now. What's their population? Like 20-something million, I believe. Anyway, Tom Homan is on a mission. God bless this man. He is deporting illegal aliens even as we speak. But he's getting pushback, predictably, by people such as Illinois Governor Pritzker, this piece of work clown, and another individual I want to talk about for a moment, and that is the Attorney General of the great state of Minnesota, Keith Ellis. What a prize this guy is. Keith Ellis is a former congressman from Minnesota. Now, dreadfully, he is the Attorney General. And Keith Ellis put up a video on Twitter earlier today, or it may have been last evening, and he basically said that we've been threatened with jail if we don't cooperate with ICE. And he said, but the fact of the matter is we're not required by law to cooperate with the Trump administration. It is not our job, Keith Ellison said, to carry out the dictates of Donald Trump. We're not his little lackeys. We're not his little agents. So we're going to take care of our local issues here in Minnesota, and but we're not going to be doing the bidding of Donald Trump. Well, Keith Ellis, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'll tell you, I don't think I'd be throwing down the gauntlet to Tom Homan, because somebody might be going to jail, whether you're the Attorney General or not. You know, I feel sorry for Minnesotans. We got one watch. Tracy, I know you're watching right now. God bless you, honey. You have just been dealt a bad hand. You got Keith Ellis for your Attorney General. You got Tim Walz as your governor. Sorry, but thank God we didn't get him as vice president. I mean, there's just one really crappy left-wing politician after another from Minnesota. Man, we have got to turn California red, turn New Jersey red, and somehow we got to get Minnesota to turn red. I can well remember, even when I was a kid, Richard Nixon ran in 1968 against Hubert Humphrey of Minnesota. And I remember thinking back then that Hubert Humphrey, former senator from Minnesota, was a left-wing ideologue, just a total leftist, and there's no way we could put Hubert Humphrey in the White House. Can you imagine Minnesota's Hubert Humphrey today? Hubert Humphrey, the man who said he was pleased as punch to be here. Hubert Humphrey, the leftist from Minnesota, would probably be aghast at what he sees coming out of Minnesota today. Hubert Humphrey was a liberal from Minnesota. I think he would look at Keith Ellis or Tim Walz and say, what the hell has happened with you people up there? This is not my Minnesota. He would probably be a voice of reason today, Hubert Humphrey. I can't imagine Hubert Humphrey being this far left. I mean, he was to the left of Nixon, I grant you that, but he was probably a decent guy. There's some Democrats are decent people, and they haven't completely lost their noggin. Like Keith Ellis, this Muslim leftist radical who's serving as the Attorney General. My Lord in heaven. How did we get this far? So Keith Ellis, my advice to you, sir, is don't poke the bear. Don't taunt Tom Homan, or you might get more than you bargained for. All right, one more thing before I go. I've got to talk about Pope Francis and the scandal that is happening in the Roman Catholic Church. Now, Pope Francis, as you know, is simply a Brazilian leftist radical. He's basically a communist, if you ask me. And I don't know how he wound up being the vicar of Christ, which he isn't, by the way, but whatever. He is now the Pope of the Roman Catholic. This guy is well into his 80s, not in the best health. So I am hearing. But Pope Francis has got a problem with Donald Trump's border policies. There's two components to this story, so bear with me while I talk about this. Let me talk about the Catholic Charities first of all. There is a charitable organization called Catholic Charities, and there is a woman, I didn't write her name down, she's in Milwaukee. She's on video and she's representing Catholic Charities. She is telling illegal aliens what to do if they're found out by ICE. They have rights too, she's saying, and this is what you need to do if ICE comes after you. In other words, she's encouraging lawbreakers to continue to break the law. She is a spokeswoman for Catholic Charities, at least in the Milwaukee area, if not the nation. I don't know. Catholic Charities, folks, encouraging people to break American law. Now, Tom Homan fired back at Pope Francis last Friday because Pope Francis called Trump's immigration programs a disgrace. Quote unquote. I apologize. Tom Homan he fired back at Pope Francis for calling the new administration's mass deportation program a disgrace, charging the pontiff to focus on problems within the Catholic Church instead. I was right the first time. Mea culpa. The Pope said it's a disgrace. The night before Monday's inauguration, Pope Francis suggested Trump's mass deportation operation will be inhumane for illegal immigrants and disgraceful because it makes the poor wretches who have nothing pay the bill. Hey, Mr. Pope, let me tell you who it's inhumane for. It was inhumane for Laken Riley. But you never said a damn word about Laken Riley, Pope Francis. You're so compassionate. Homan lambasted the Pope for criticizing U.S. immigration policy. And he said this, quote, "The Pope ought to stick to the Catholic Church and fix that. That's a mess," unquote. That's what Pope Francis told Rob Schmidt of Newsmax. Now, Homan, who is a Catholic, he described himself a lifelong Catholic, but in this interview with Newsmax, he pointed out the Pope's hypocrisy for criticizing the border wall when the religious leader has a 39-foot high wall that encircles the Vatican. Aren't these people so hypocritical? Sorry to judge a pope, but it's a fact, folks. Here he is judging Donald Trump for wanting to put up a border wall, and you've got a 39-foot wall around the Vatican. What's that all about? It's just like Nancy Pelosi putting up walls around the Capitol, but she won't spend a cent for an American border wall. What's up with that? You Democratic politicians, I bet you got walls around your homes, don't you? So it's okay for you, it's just not okay for us. Do as I say, not as I do. Tom Homan said this, quote, "They have a wall around the Vatican, and if you illegally enter the Vatican, the crime is serious. You'll be charged with a serious crime and jailed." So he can protect the Vatican where he lives. He can build a wall where he lives, but the American people are not allowed that, unquote. You go, Tom Homan. He went on to say that the border security saves lives, and he's right, and the Pope needs to understand that. Then he continued, quote, "When less people come, less women get raped by the cartel, less children die in the river, less Americans die from fentanyl overdoses," unquote. He is exactly right. Folks, the wall is an act of compassion. It keeps fentanyl out of our country to a larger degree. It keeps the murderers and the rapists out of our country to a far greater degree, thus allowing us to live in a greater safety, thus saving the lives of people like Laken Riley and Kate Steinle. Remember her? And all these victims who fall prey to these illegal aliens breaking our laws, coming across our borders. But the Pope just doesn't understand that, does he? As he sits behind his wall, this all compassionate vicar of Christ is going to school the rest of us about what compassionate is all about. Well, the Pope is not compassionate, if you ask me, because he can have his wall, but we can't have ours. We got to just sit here and be sitting ducks for these illegal aliens, these criminals coming across our border, bringing in fentanyl, killing our citizens. It is far more compassionate to maintain the security at our border, is it not? Democrats, and Pope Francis fits into this category. I know he's not an American, but if he were an American, he'd be in the Democratic Party. There's no doubt about that. These are the people who are always howling about love and compassion, and love is love. They don't know a damn thing about compassion, folks. I'm sorry, but they don't. These people aren't compassionate. Ask all the millions and millions of aborted babies how compassionate they are. Sorry, I'm getting wound up, but it's the truth. They are not compassionate. They don't take care of their forest and their wilderness areas, and the undergrowth grows up, starts fires, and kills people and makes them homeless. How compassionate is that? It's not compassionate. They are not compassionate people. Ask Joe Biden, who went all over the world starting even more wars. How compassionate were you, Joe Biden? How compassionate was Obama? You Democrats are such effing hypocrites. You don't have a scintilla of compassion in you. None. That includes the Pope. Can you tell I'm not Roman Catholic? But Tom Homan is, and he's given the Pope what fur? Okay, That's enough. I'm about to lose my voice. Folks, that's what's happening. Whew. Give me your comments down below, would you? And like this video, share this video far and wide. Make sure you like it and subscribe to the Old Triple T channel if you have not. Good to hear from all of you, and take care. Go out there, have a great day, and I will see you soon.